We are expected to get up in the morning, to work through the day, and not sleep until nighttime. What's up, guys? I hope you're well. I wanted to talk to you today about the afternoon slump. This is that feeling that I'm sure you've all experienced where between 2 and 4 p.m. in the afternoon, if you kind of wake up at a regular morning time, you experience this real lack of energy. You feel this slump where you basically just want to go to sleep. You just feel the need that if it was possible for you, you would have a nap. And of course, most of our day-to-day lives don't invite this to happen. We are expected to get up in the morning, to work through the day, and not sleep until nighttime. So where this feeling comes from, it's predicted it's from our circadian rhythm. And our circadian rhythm is basically our natural hormone balance in our body in relation to going to sleep and waking up. The idea that as the sun sets at night, it starts releasing certain hormones and certain processes in the body to start winding us down for sleep. And when the sun comes up in the morning and you open your eyes and sunlight is absorbed, certain processes are activated to help you wake up and start engaging with your day. And part of that rhythm, it's not simply up in the morning and down at night. There is up in the morning and a slump in the afternoon. It's a natural part of the rhythm, back up for the later afternoon, then back down into the evening. But of course, our society and the lives we live don't promote our ability to nurture that. If you're lucky, you have a lunch break in the afternoon, but sometimes that can just make it even worse because you actually sit still for a moment and kind of are brought to the realization of how you're feeling. And the things you eat can affect it massively, and that's what we're going to talk about a bit today. So, firstly, my first bit of advice is if it's possible in your life and in your day-to-day, it would be to respect your circadian rhythm. Try to get up with the sun or get up as early in the morning as possible. Try to have that break in the afternoon. In some cultures, they call it a siesta. I'm not telling you to have a sleep. I'm telling you to not put your most demanding and heavy bits of work at that stage in the day. Lighter work, easier things that don't require as much focus, energy, and concentration. Then work again late afternoon, and then again relax down into the evening and try to go to sleep when it gets dark. Now I understand, doesn't work for everybody, your jobs, your careers, all the rest of it, fine. I'm actually one of those people where I get up a little bit later, I go to sleep a little bit later, I'm a bit more of a night owl, and my slump tends to come closer to 4 and 5 o'clock as opposed to 1 or 2. So how can we manage our energy and how can we minimize the effects of it? Now, the most obvious thing that people go to is caffeine and the use of coffee and teas and things like this to try to boost us and pick us back up. The problem here is you're not respecting your circadian rhythm by doing that. By having coffee at that time in the afternoon, again, we're talking if you're running a regular cycle and plan to sleep around 10, 11 p.m., that coffee is going to disrupt it. And it's going to make it more difficult for you later on to get a good night's sleep. So ideally, caffeine is not the answer. If you're going to use caffeine, I would recommend using something that's got a lower dosage. So for example, green tea is naturally caffeinated, but not to the extent that you would get in an espresso. So maybe you can use it a little bit rather than using the full dose that you might use in the morning when you drink your coffees. Part 2 is the food you eat. Now, I try not to on this channel discuss my personal food preferences because it's a very charged topic and everyone is so different in terms of what works for them nutritionally. I will give you what works for me, but this is by no means me telling you that you should go do this. What I will tell you to do is experiment with the food types you eat pre-slump. So if you know that around 2 o'clock you start to feel a bit groggy, start keeping a food diary of the 2 or 3 hours before that feeling comes over you. And experiment with things like eating more or less carbohydrates, eating more or less fats, proteins, drinking more water, and see if a certain lunch, a certain meal leaves you feeling more energetic than others. For me, this is me personally, and again, I'm talking now closer to 4 or 5 o'clock. If I eat a lot of carbs before that, late lunch 2-3, I am guaranteed personally to feel like a zombie for the next part of the day. So if I eat a big bowl of rice or pasta or bread or anything like that, I am guaranteed to be a bit of a mess. So I try to go high fat, high protein, and that seems to sustain me a little bit better. I still feel it. By no means is it a fix for everything, but it certainly helps. The last bit of advice I'd give you is fresh air and a change of environment. So again, if you work in an office, this might be a bit trickier, but see what you can do. Get outside, or at least get to a window. Take some deep breaths. If you can, go for a walk. Ideally, get around nature. Get into a park and bathe in nature for a little bit. And I don't mean that to sound hippie-ish. No offense to hippies. But I find that being around nature re-energizes me. It refuels me. And I tend to breathe deeper when I'm in a park. The air feels a bit fresher and a bit more inviting. And that deep breathing and reoxygenizing of myself and just that change of scenery is enough that when I then go back to whatever I'm doing, back into my work, I feel a sense of being rejuvenated and ready to go again. And once I'm back on the workflow, the slump quickly passes. It doesn't last long if you don't entertain it. But if you sit down when you feel that way and then kind of get into the sofa and relax and sit with a warm drink, it's going to make it 10 times worse. So I find that being active, maybe spacing a little workout around it, maybe going for a little jog, is a great way to mitigate it and get through that part of the day. But again, like I said at the very beginning, you should try to respect your rhythms. You shouldn't be trying. You are not a machine. Yeah, we talk about being the car all the time, but you are not a machine. You are a person and you have certain processes and certain feelings that your body needs to go through. And you can't keep ignoring it and you can't keep topping it up with caffeine to power it through. You can to a certain extent, but you just understand that you're going to pay the price sooner or later. If you're not going to pay it today, it's going to be carried over to tomorrow. And eventually you're going to suffer from things like burnout, things like excessive stress, sleep disorders, caffeine dependency, all of this stuff. It's not worth it. So if you suffer from the afternoon slump, those would be the things I suggest. Put your lighter work in that part of the day, respect your rhythm, adjust what you eat and drink around that time and play with that idea and record it and see if you can find what your ideal looking meals are around that time to energize you. And then finally, get outside, go for a walk, try to get around nature and do some deep breathing to help mitigate the effects of that midday slump. And as always, take care of yourself.